Hi everybody, welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. I don't know about you, but it sure does seem to me like there's been a number of deadly and destructive earthquakes lately that have been 7.0 or above. And so I wanted to do a quick update and see where we're at this year for earthquakes. Here's the USGS earthquake map, and this goes back to June 1st of this year. And then these are the 7.0 earthquakes that we've had since that time. There have been a couple particularly destructive earthquakes in Venezuela and Colombia. I'm not as familiar with this one off the coast of Mexico and Guatemala. And then more recently on the other side of the Pacific, the most recent one was this one that affected Indonesia. This was just a couple days ago on the 14th. It was a 7.7 earthquake. And then here's one in the Philippines. And this was June 7th, a 7.8. So really powerful earthquakes. And the one that struck Indonesia and the ones that struck Venezuela and Colombia have produced some pretty cinematic scenes. A lot of videos on X showing structures collapsing and people running, and it's really crazy. Especially the one that hit Venezuela, which so far is the deadliest, between the two of them, the deadliest earthquakes this year. And I don't think we have a final death toll for that event, but when we looked at it the first time, they were saying that it could be in the tens of thousands. And so that's yet to be seen. In Colombia, there were a lot of dramatic scenes there as well. There was one cathedral in particular that was damaged where one of the steeples fell over or was broken and now it's leaning. But it's been in the news, and there's been a number of news outlets that have talked about this. This is from AccuWeather on X. The Monday earthquake in Colombia was the 10th worldwide this year to register at least magnitude 7.0 on the Richter scale. It was also the strongest to strike Colombia since a magnitude 8.0 earthquake was recorded July 31st, 1970. So that's really big news if you're from Colombia. And remember, the signs of the times, the judgments coming to the earth are not just for us in Utah, the United States. It includes all of God's children. And so if you're from Colombia, this is huge. The largest one since 1970. I wasn't even alive at that time. So, okay, so we have that. And then more recently, and by the way, this didn't include this most recent Indonesian earthquake, the 7.7, because this was posted August 10th. Since that time, there's been one more. And then I saw this on the New York Post. They did an article about Stefan Burns. He was saying, according to his method and his theory, that he thinks that California is next. I don't necessarily put too much stock into the way that he views things. Not that, I'm a geophysicist and I understand these things, but I don't know about his track record. If I had time to put together a spreadsheet and see how many of his predictions came true and how many didn't, then I'd be in a better position to know. But I don't know, but people are taking note. So I just take it with a grain of salt. I'm not saying that he's wrong. Maybe he is at the frontier of predicting earthquakes, and maybe he knows how to predict them and mainstream science doesn't know. I don't know. But New York Post, they did an article and he thinks that California is on deck. I seem to remember him saying, or somebody saying, that it would be more dangerous in California because I think the earthquake would be at a shallower depth. So I don't know. Let's just pray for California, pray for all these areas that could experience these large 7.0 or above earthquakes. But I hope nothing happens, but these are the last days. Okay, so they reported on that. I wanted to look at the actual numbers and figure out, is this out of the ordinary? Should we be concerned? And the answer is yes and no. We're going to look at this Huffington Post article. Why are there so many earthquakes happening? We asked geologists, by Brittany Wong. In June, 4 massive earthquakes struck different parts of the world: Northern California, Venezuela, and Japan, within a span of 8 hours. The string of major earthquakes in recent months has left many wondering whether the quakes are connected and if the frequency of earthquakes we've been experiencing is out of the ordinary. As unnerving as all the earthquake news has felt, geologists say there's nothing atypical about the current earthquake patterns. Globally, we typically see about 15 to 18 earthquakes between magnitude 7.0 and 7.9 each year. Bohan, who is a geologist, told HuffPost, so far this year, we've had 10, which puts us on the lower end of what we'd expect by this point in the year. Okay, so the number of 7.0 to 7.9 earthquakes themselves is actually below average. But, quote, what is notable is that several recent earthquakes have been damaging or destructive. Those are the events we hear about, see images of, and remember. And to me, that's the more important part. It's not so much how many powerful earthquakes we're having, but how many affect people. Because when we're talking about signs and wonders, it's a form of communication from the Lord. He communicates in lots of different ways, personal revelation and such, but he also communicates through signs and wonders. And so you have to have somebody that's doing the communicating and somebody that's receiving the message. And so if we're having more of these events that affect people, then I think that that's noteworthy. I think that we should pay attention. So I do think that it's significant. Now, I want to look at previous years and think about it through that lens, about how much have earthquakes lately been affecting people, and therefore how many messages are being received from the Lord. I go to Wikipedia for my earthquake numbers because I don't have the time to do a really in-depth study into earthquakes, but whoever is maintaining this page, I think that they do a good enough job, so I just use these numbers. The numbers are good enough for our purposes. I take them and put them on my spreadsheet called Signs Earthquakes, and this is what it looks like. Let's zoom in. So column C, total earthquakes that are 6.0 or above. So far this year, we're at 91. So we're now about halfway through the month of August. Still have a few months to go. And I'm not going to project it, but just comparing this to previous years, it doesn't look like it's too out of the ordinary. I'd say the same thing with earthquakes that are 5.0 or above. I need to redo this row, double check that. So ignore, column E. Column H. So before I updated this for this video today, I had a total of 3 deadly earthquakes, which are defined by any earthquake that has killed 10 or more people. So we jumped from 3 to 6. So that number doubled on my spreadsheet. Compare that to 2024, where there were only 3. Last year had 7. So I don't know. It seems like there's a good chance that this may pass last year or even the years before that. In 2023, there were 9. In 2022, there were 9. The largest number that I have of deadly earthquakes in a year is back in 1995 with 12. So I guess we'll have to see how that goes. So far, the deadliest earthquake killed 6,301. This is the Venezuela earthquakes, the 7.5 and 7.2 together. So that event leads the way. I think, let's see. So August 10th for the Colombia earthquake. I'm recording this on the 17th. So I don't know. This number probably will still rise, but I don't know how much higher it'll go beyond 294. But you add them all up together, and we're at 6,821 earthquake deaths total between all these deadly earthquakes this year. Last year, we were at 8,200. So last year has been deadlier than this year so far, although this year is not yet over. The most deadly earthquake that we've seen in recent times, like to a higher degree, was back in 2023. That was the Turkey-Syria earthquake, the one that caused that Mount of Olives to cleave in twain in Turkey, which I do think was a major sign of the times. It's not too often that mounts of olives split into two from earthquakes. And then to visualize it a different way, we have my chart over here, total death toll by year. And this is what this year, let me move my image up here. This is what it looks like this year. So here's 2026. And, compared to a lot of these other years, it's definitely not as bad. Of course, that could change in an instant because, for example, both of these huge spikes, this one in 2004, this one in 2010, were from a single earthquake. The one in 2004 is the one that we've talked about so many times on the channel, the Southeast Asian earthquake and tsunami. Although that was as a result of both an earthquake and a tsunami, but I guess it doesn't really matter. And then the 2010 earthquake was the earthquake that hit Haiti. Okay, so these were just from a single earthquake. So I don't know if Stefan Burns is right. Well, he's talking about a very populated area, Southern California, and that's like one of those areas that you've heard about probably your whole life, that they're expecting the big one. And I don't know. I hope not, but I feel like it's one of those things that is probably going to manifest. It's kind of like I've said before on the channel, when we've thought about the Middle East, in my mind, the big bad guy, the final boss of the level, if you're playing a video game, the final boss is Iran. And now we're to that point where things are going on with Iran. Other things that I've thought about have been like North Korea. I feel like at some point between now and the second coming, something will happen there. I've also thought about China and Taiwan. You have like these future, what seems to be future climaxes. And I feel like, California, as well as Washington, I feel like those are just, there's something that we're going to be seeing before or at the time of the second coming with these earthquakes in California and Washington. So yeah, this is where we're at. So it's not that there's been like relative to these other years, it's not that there's been like a ton of people that have been killed because of earthquakes, but it's just the number of locations that are experiencing it, and it's causing a lot of news. And that by itself is important, not just for the areas that are affected by these earthquakes, but for us, the people that are watching. It's getting attention across the world. And so a message is being sent. So anyway, that's my update. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll talk to you guys later.